ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंचाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तनं हृद्यन्तस्त्वभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतां नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। सर्वशास्त्रादि पीयूष सर्ववैदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाध्य सर्वलौकिक दृक्पद सर्वभागवत प्राणा श्रीमद्भागवतो प्रभु कलिद्वंतोतितादित्या श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाथाय प्रेम वर्ष अक्षराय ते सर्वद सर्वसेवाय श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तुते। मद एक बंधु मद संगीन मद गुरुन मद महाधन मद निस्तारक मन भाग्य मद आनंद नमोस्तुते। असाधु साधु तादाइन अति नीच ताकरा हा ना मुंचा कदाचिन माम प्रेम न हृत कंथयो स्पुरः। ग्रंथराशन भागवताम की जय। Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. Nice to see all of you. Thank you. So today, last week what we did was an overview of the canto number 3. And there was like few verses of canto number 3, the last chapter, which we did not discuss. So we're going to start off with those last few verses. It's just the final part of the chapter 33 of canto 3. And then we'll do a quick overview of fourth canto, and then we'll start with canto number 4. Okay. So let's start off with chapter canto 3, chapter 33, and the last part. And I think we discussed until verse number 26, if I'm not wrong. Everyone okay? Everyone with me? Yes, okay. So, okay. So I think 26, yeah, from 26 we can start discussing. And basically, what did we read? What was the final conclusion in this chapter? This chapter started off with Devavati expressing her prayers to her son Kapiladev. And what was the main theme of her prayer? Who remembers? Devavati's prayers. What was the main theme of her prayers?
Remove her from this associate. I mean, she was in material attachment. Remove that, all the material attachment.
Okay, okay. Good point. So basically, what we see, her prayers are basically she is expressing astonishment. And she's saying, how is it? Oh, Kapila, you are the supreme personality of Godhead. But how is it that you have appeared from my womb? You know, and she is actually expressing her astonishment in that way. And then she actually says, actually, this is not very surprising. And why is that? Who remembers that part? Why does Devoti say, oh, well, you appeared in my womb, but this is not very astonishing? Why? And she meditates on one of the forms of Krishna. And what is that form? Vata Patra Shai. And which is this form? At the end, when the devastation takes place, then Lord Krishna takes the form of a baby. He's lying on a leaf and he's sucking his own toe. You know, and she's saying, "Oh, but this is very astonishing. You took a birth from my womb. You're the supreme personality of God. The entire universe comes from you. But you took birth from my womb. Well, this is not so astonishing because at the end of the universe, you yourself take the form of a baby, and in the form of baby, you're sucking your own toe." And the beautiful verse. Why is Lord Krishna sucking his own toe? Because he's actually thinking that all the devotees, they actually dedicate everything to taste the dust of my lotus feet. What is that in that dust of my lotus feet? I want to taste it. So Krishna wants to taste what his own devotees are tasting. And that is the reason why Krishna actually finally comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he wants to taste what Srimati Radharani is actually experiencing. Right? So she composed prayers, and then in those prayers were two very important verses where it actually says that anyone who chants the holy name, even the holy name appears on the tip of a tongue, even though he is born in a family of dog eaters, he is qualified to perform Vedic sacrifices. Right? Everyone remember that? Right, that famous verse. And then further she actually says, aho bata sopachatu garyan yet jivagre vartate nam tubhyam tepus tapustu jausa shashnur arya brahmanuchur nam grinanti yete. Right, that one, when the holy name is appearing on the tip of the tongue, one should consider that person has already performed all the Vedic sacrifices. He's already studied all the Vedas. He's already taken bath in all the holy names, because chanting the holy name is the perfection of all processes. And that means he's already done everything else. He does not need to focus on any of those. Right? And in that way, she offers prayers. And then we read that how Kapila Dev, he does not say much after that. He just says, okay, mother, you just follow. I have given you this path of bhakti yoga. You just follow the path, right? And success is guaranteed. And actually, you're already successful because you're meditating on me. You have a relationship of mother, right? So that bhav is already there. So you're already successful, right? Okay, and then he says that you will be liberated even within this body. Even within this body, you'll be liberated. And then we are reading the section where devotee attain perfection. Now, in the overview of third canto, what we did discuss was the theme of third canto. What anartha are we destroying in third canto?
The tendency of enjoyment, Prabhuji.
The tendency of enjoyment. So now you see the third canto, last chapter, also ending with that theme, right? So in the next section, we see how it is described what opulences a Devahuti had. Right? I mean, Kardamuni had created that air palace, and all these servants were there, and those servants were still there even when this conversation is there. So it actually, the last section we read how Kardamuni, his, that ashram was made of first class marble walls and decorated with jewelry and beautiful gardens, and different servants who were serving Devahuti. And then what does it say? Yes, all these opulence is there, but was Devahuti enjoying this opulence? So the same theme, we are concluding third canto with the theme of how to enjoy this material world. That is a big obstacle for us to progress in spiritual life, and that anartha needs to be taken away. Right, and then we see here when Devoti engages in devotional service, following the instructions of her son Kapila Dev, in spite of all the opulences, she is completely detached. Completely detached, right? And this actually concludes the theme of third chapter. Right? Okay, so that's where we were, and Right. So in text 20, it says that in spite of all these possessions, she gave up all comforts and she was only sorry. The only feeling what a devotee was feeling was separation from her son Kapiladev. So my husband left and now my son has left. So I'm feeling that mood of separation. Right? Okay. So let's just quickly, we'll go through the last few verses and then we'll move on to canto number 4. Right? Okay. Text number 26.
Can somebody read the Sanskrit?
Okay. Someone wants to start? Okay, let's start. Okay, go ahead, Shirani Mati, please.
Evam vidita tatvasya.
26. Okay, 26.
So,
Brahmanya avastita matir.
somebody else go ahead. I'm on the wrong page.
Text 26. ब्रह्मणे अवस्थिता मतिर भगवते आत्मा संश्रये निवृत्ता जीवा पतित्वात् शिना शिना क्लेशाप्त निर्वृत्ति.
Thank you.
Hare.
So basically, we are saying that how devotee she developed detachment and she practiced bhakti yoga. And the previous verses, what did we say? How was her bhakti yoga? Yes, she was engaging in bhakti yoga, but also the practices of Astanga yoga, which are actually favorable to bhakti, she accepted that. The processes of jnana yoga that is favorable to bhakti, she actually accepted that. Right? And then by that she get a realization. So this verse actually says what? Brahmani avasti matihi. So her mind was situated in Brahman. Bhagavati, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Atma samshaya, Paramatma residing in all living entities. So what is the goal of Jnana yoga, Sankhya yoga? To come to a realization of No. What is the realization in terms of Vadanti Tattva Vidas? Realization of the absolute truth. Through Sankhya Yoga, one comes to a realization of Brahman. Through Astanga Yoga, one comes to a realization of Paramatma. Through Bhakti, one comes to a realization of Bhagavan. Right? Satchid Ananda. Right? Now, in this verse, what does it say? When it says Brahmani Avastiti Matihi, her mind is situated in Brahman. Like Bhagavad Gita was, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mat bhaktim labate param. So she was already situated in Brahman. Second point, Atma Samshaya. The Paramatma, she already realized Atma Samshaya means that Atma in the heart of all living entities. She realized Paramatma in the heart of all living entities. Right? And then the third is Bhagavati, Supreme Personality of God. So here is saying by engaging in bhakti, she realized Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Right? So she got all three realizations. And then Nivritta, she actually became freed from Jiva Apatitvat, the unfortunate condition of Jiva soul, and Shina Klesha Apta Nivrittaha. Her material pangs disappeared, attained transcendental bliss. So this is one way very similar to Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Na sochati na kankshati. Na sochati na kankshati can be related to what? Shina klesha. All the klesha is actually destroyed. Right? No sochati na kankshati. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu. Seeing Krishna in all living entities. Right? Sama sarveshu bhuteshu. Mad bhaktim labate param. Right? So Brahma bhuta prasannatma. So prasannatma can be related to what? Apta nivriti. Attain transcendental bliss. Right? So this is the stage of devotee. She attained realization Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Right? Okay. And then Prabhupada in the purport says how by complete knowledge of Bhagavan, one already realizes Brahman, Paramatma. He quotes Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. And he also quotes from 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is the verse where Krishna says, I am the source of the impersonal Brahman. 14:27. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. I am the source of the impersonal Brahman. So Prabhupada explains that. And then further, yeah. So Prabhupada also talks of anartha nivriti. When it talks of klesha shina, all the klesha are actually destroyed. What are the klesha that we are talking of at this stage? See, initially the klesha could be desire to enjoy material enjoyment, desire to gratify our senses, all these. But what is the klesha which is at this stage?
maybe attachment.
Yeah, but particularly here, because we still have the body, right? So there may be some kind of attachment to the body or attachment to fulfill the needs of the body. But at this stage, when it says klesha shina, it actually says, so Prabhupada says, at this stage, one forgets all necessities of the body. That is the klesha shina. And he says, just like when we sleep, in our dreams, we create so many bodies, right? Every day we wake up and we have seen so many bodies in our dreams. But as soon as we wake up, what happens? We forget all those bodies, right? So similarly here, once one wakes up to the realization of Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, then one forgets the needs of the bodies. He forgets that this body, this is me, right? We see Prabhupada's example. How towards the end, in his final pastimes in 77, he was hardly drinking water. But still, what was he doing? Explaining Srimad Bhagavatam purports, giving the purports of Srimad Bhagavatam. And one may say, how are they surviving? Like even the Goswamis, we give this example. Once in 2 or 3 days, take palmful of buttermilk. Now one may say, how can one survive? Someone who is a nutritionist or someone, a biologist, he'll say, impossible. No one can survive with that. But how are these, our acharyas surviving? Because they forget the needs of the body. And then further, and then that is the next verse, it actually says how Krishna takes care of all the needs of the body. Okay. All right. So Prabhupada also concludes this purport and say, if you remember the previous chapter, what was the previous chapter? The previous chapter was coming to the point that how bhakti is the highest of all processes, and through bhakti, everything that can be achieved in other processes is achieved in bhakti. So Prabhupada also concludes this purport and says the real purpose of all the processes, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, is what? Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantar atmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam. Shraddhavan bhajate. That is the highest. So he comes to the point of that all the purposes should bring us to the point of devotional service. If it's not bringing us to the point, then it is just like beating husks of wheat when the grains have already been taken out. So anyone knows this verse? This is one verse in the Bhagavatam where it says, see, when you take out the wheat, right? So normally it is in, I'm sure everyone has seen, right? It is in this husk, the wheats are there, and then they beat it. And when they beat it, then the wheat grains, they come out, right? Now, if the grains are already taken and then you beat it, what is the result? No result. So similarly here, Prabhupada is giving the example that if we do other processes and it's not bringing us to the point of devotional service, then it is simply useless labor. And there's a verse actually. This is in 10th canto, it's 14th chapter, Brahmaji's prayers, text number 4, which actually makes this point. And it says the exact same point. Shreya shritim bhaktim udasya te vibho klishanti ye kevala bodha labdhe tesham aso kleshala eva shishyate nanyad yatha stula tusha va ghatinam. So here it says, Brahma is saying, my dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the best path of self-realization. Okay. And further it says, if someone gives up that path and engages in cultivation of knowledge, he simply undergoes a troublesome process and will not achieve desired result. Right? The example, as a person beats an empty husk, cannot get grains out of it, simply by speculation, one cannot attain perfection. Right? So the exact same point that Prabhupada is concluding this purport is given in 10:14:4. Okay, next verse, 27. So everyone is following the flow. Basically, we are just reading what is the perfection that devotee has attained. Okay, so 27.
Nityaruda samadhitvat paravritta guna brahma na samara tadatmanam swapne drishtam ivo titaha. Anyone can read the translation.
Hare Krishna. Translation: situated in eternal trance and freed from illusion, impelled by the modes of material nature, she forgot her material body, just as one forgets his different bodies in a dream.
Okay, so here very nice. So here would say Nitya Arudha Sam Samadhi Dhitat. Right? So basically Nitya Arudha means she was actually situated in Samadhi, in eternal trance. So we are just discussing what is devotee's perfection. And she says, okay, one. Can anyone post the link to join in our chat?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I was able to
Oh,
join now.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so here it is said Nitya Arudha Samadhi Dvata. Samadhi means Samadhi, right? She is in Samadhi. So she was situated in Samadhi. Paravrita Guna Brahma. She was actually Guna. What are Guna? The modes. So she was free from the three modes of material nature. Tadana Sasmara Atmana. And she did not remember her material body. Right? So the word na sasmara. Na sasmara means she did not remember. She did not remember what? That this is me. The needs of the material body, she just forgot. We had discussed this actually in the previous chapters, either last chapter or the before that when devotees they progress in their spiritual life, they forget the needs of the body. Right? The same devotee, what Kapila Dev explained previously, now devotee is actually experiencing that. And then here, what the example we gave, Eva, just like Sapne Drishtam Utita. So when you wake up from a dream, then you forget the dream like bodies, right? Maybe in a dream, you're dreaming and maybe you're the king of a particular nation, right, country, or you dream and you may be some, I don't know what, cricket star or someone, and you wake up, it's like, oh, that's not me. Similarly, when we wake up in Krishna consciousness, we realize, no, this body, this is not me. The needs of the body, we forget. So Prabhupada in the purport says, how can we reach that stage where we forget the needs of the body? And first he says, one who has no remembrance of the body, though we are within this body, is actually not bound by material existence. See, the three modes of material nature act upon us as long as we are connecting with this body. Like we often give that example of coconut. Everyone knows. See, initially, the wet coconut, the pulp is connected to the coconut. Right? You break the coconut, and then in India they give the dab. Then you can actually have to scrape out because it's connected. But as the coconut dries, then what happens? That inside pulp it hardens and it separates from the coconut. So even though it is within the coconut, it is not connected. Similarly, even though we are in this body, yet we are actually one way not connected to this body. Right? So that is the state that devotee attain. Right? Okay. And then how is forgetfulness possible? So here Prabhupada says, forgetfulness is possible when we engage our senses in the transcendental service of the Lord. Right? So basically the point is, again and again we see, what is our point? How often should we engage in devotional service?
Nityam.
24 hours a day. That is our standard. 24 hours a day engaging in. So here Prabhupada explains that when we are so absorbed in devotional service, we forget the needs of the body. Right? And maybe we have experience of this, like maybe it's as Janmashtami. And we come in the morning and then we are doing seva, we are cooking, we are cleaning, we are organizing, we are doing this, we are doing this. And then even though we may be fasting that day, no water whole day. But we just forget that I'm thirsty. I'm not drunk even a drop of water the whole day. And then it's just like we are forgetting. So Prabhupada is making the point. When we get so absorbed in seva that we forget the needs of the body. So, and then he gives a point. He says, by so much absorption in seva, we forget all material membership. Prabhupada says material membership, like how we have a Costco membership or like this membership, triple A membership. What is our membership right now? Of this body. I am Indian membership, or I'm American membership, or I am this husband, this membership, that membership. Prabhupada says, you forget all memberships. No more material membership, right? So, and then he realizes we are eternal servant of Krishna. Okay, 28.
Tadeha parata posho vyakrishashchadya sambhavat babho malar avachana sadhuma eva pavakaha. Varshana Priya Mataji.
Her body was being taken care of by the spiritual themselves created by her husband, Kardama, and since she had no mental anxiety at that time, her body did not become thin. She appeared just like a fire surrounded by smoke.
Hmm. So basically, here we are talking about Devavati. Like, what was the condition? Her body was actually still taken care of by those damsels. Which damsels? You read before chapter 32, I think, where we read how Kardamuni creates all these damsels to take care of. So those damsels were still there, and they were actually taking care of Devavati's bodies. And then he says, it's so interesting. It says, because she had no anxiety, her body did not become thin. And what does Prabhupada say in the purport? According to Ayurveda, if you have no anxieties, then you become fat. Says, if you have no anxiety, you become fat. And I was thinking like, okay, because outside in the world, there is people spend so much money on, fat reduction, methods, and they come up with newer and newer methods, and so we have a method. What is that? Take up anxieties for Krishna. As soon as you take up anxieties from Krishna, then, Prabhupada, according to this rule, no more. You won't get fat, right? So here the point is, because she was free from anxieties, she did not become thin. So we are saying the opposite, that we are actually saying that when we take up anxieties for Krishna, you know, then we'll become thin that way. But so anyway, that's the point there. But because she had no mental anxiety, her body did not become thing. And then further, Prabhupada says, right. So he makes a point that Devahuti, she has already given up everything, right? We already read. She says Brahmabhuta Prasanatma, all those things. Why was she taking service from others? Isn't it incorrect for her to accept service at this stage of her life? And Prabhupada makes the point. The one who has renounced his life, you know, should actually, like, imagine, if you go through brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Someone takes sannyas following that. And after sannyas, if he has many servants to take care of his body, then one way it's like, what kind of sannyas is that? So Prabhupada says, generally in renounced order of life, one should not accept service from others. Right? But one way, why was Devahuti accepting service? Because she was like so completely detached that even though the service was there, she wasn't even connecting to her body. So because it was their duty to serve, they were offering the service. Just like we give the point that, for a spiritual master, he may be a sannyasi. And then he is accepting service from his disciples. But why is he accepting? For his own sense gratification? No. Giving an opportunity for others to progress in their spiritual life. Because we need to develop that mood of seva, and the spiritual master, one way, even though he may feel uncomfortable accepting that service, he accepts it as a duty so that the disciples learn how to serve, and finally how to serve in a spiritual form. To develop that mood of service, the spiritual master is actually extending himself in that way. So Devoti here is said that her body was just like a fire which was covered with smoke. So when a fire is covered with smoke, right, one way we cannot directly see this fire. So similarly, her body, one way, though it was taken care of, but it was shining effulgently because of her spiritual realization. Okay, everyone? Devoti state. Okay, 29.
Svangam tapo yogamayam muktakesham gatambaram daivaguptam na buddhe vasudeva pravishtadhi. Dipin Savila Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Because she was always absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she was not aware that her hair was sometimes loosened or her garments were disarrayed.
So we discussed this point that because she was so absorbed in seva, she forgot the needs of her body, right? Swa Angam, her own body, was tapaha and yoga. She was so engaged in, and then finally it comes to Vasudeva Pravishtadhi. Her thoughts were completely engaged in Supreme Personality of Godhead. And even though externally she did not care for her bodily needs, Daiva Guptam. So Prabhupada says this is the key word. Daiva Guptam means what? She was personally cared by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we discussed it. How the Goswamis, once in 2-3 days, just surviving on so much palmful of milk, of buttermilk. How is it possible? Right? Because Krishna is actually maintaining them. Krishna, when we completely dedicate ourselves to seva, then Krishna takes care of our needs. So that's the main point that Prabhupada actually makes in this point. One surrenders to service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord takes care of maintenance of the devotee's body. Which is an example of this from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to Srivas Thakur. He says, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
We
Hare
can,
Krishna Prabhu.
Can you hear me?
yeah, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Because the video froze on my end, so I thought that was out. Is the voice breaking or is it okay?
Yeah, it is frozen.
It's
It's
clear.
okay, Prabhu.
Okay. Okay, now it's good. Yeah, okay. All of a sudden, like everyone froze, so I thought,
It's good, Prabhu.
yeah, voice is okay. It's not breaking up, right? Still, the video is like kind of
Good.
okay. And let me know if the voice is unclear. Okay. Okay. So here, oh yeah, I was telling. What's the example from Chaitanya Charitamrita about this? Srivas Thakur, right? Once Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to Srivas Thakur and says, Srivas Thakur, you're a grahastha. You have children. What is your job? How are you maintaining yourself? And what does Srivas Thakur do? He claps 3 times. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, what is the meaning of these 3 claps? You know. And then Srivas Thakur says, he says, I have this faith. In 3 days, if I have to fast for 3 days, where food is not supplied to me, then I'll jump into the Ganga. And basically his point was that somehow or other, because I'm engaged in your service, you will maintain me. You are my maintainer. Why should I care about this? You know. So I have this assurance even like if I'm not supplied food for 3 days, that's not possible. Food, Krishna will provide. Krishna, you are the maintainer. Lord, you are the maintainer. I don't have to worry about my food. Okay. Some of the video is all frozen for me. So I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to log out and join back. Okay, just 1 minute.